a good evening. Welcome to the forum. For those of you joining us online, the huge glass public building in central Norwich, and which is a delight to work in and delight to hold the Norfolk Makers Festival in, and that's the event that's going on here right now. And of course, we have many other free events and big events here and at the library, of course. So the Norfolk Makers Festival, it brings together crafters and artists from across the county and beyond, and they all provide a programme of free exhibitions, hands-on activities, demonstrations, advice, workshops, and many, many creative conversations. And also, for those of you who have been to the festival, you'll know that one of our big attractions this year is Margaret, Norfolk's Queen of Knitting, and her knitted royal palaces and her knitted Great Yarmouth are all on show, the first time ever that all her pieces have been on show, and that's in the lower gallery. And we're getting all sorts of press attention. It's just, as usual, Margaret's going global. She's 94, she's 95 next week, and absolute superstar. So if you haven't been to see all that, please do come back to the festival tomorrow, and we're on till Sunday. So each year, as part of the festival, we run this event, From Craft to Career, which was actually Julie's idea. Julie's from the magnificent Norfolk and Norwich Millennium Library, which is here in the forum, and runs the Business and Intellectual Property Centre. And she's the person, as I said, who drives this event, works hard with her team to provide business support with one-to-one advice, workshops, seminars, and networking for people who want to go into business. So Julie is the person to speak to at the end of this, and the BIPC at the library and other places around the county, well worth linking up with. So this evening, we are going to hear from our 6-strong panel who are joining us here on the stage and live from the United States, from Seattle and Maine. They're going to share their experiences, their triumphs, their mistakes, and hope to give you, our audience, both personal and useful insights into what it takes to turn your craft into your career. So let me introduce our panel tonight, here to share their experiences with you. We have 2 people who make a living with textiles, one who has created a CIC, that's a community interest company, focusing on reusing and recycling textiles, an entrepreneurship advisor from Norwich University of the Arts, and 2 founders of a unique worldwide organisation called Loose Ends, who are joining us on Zoom, as you can see, from the United States. Before we get into discussion, I'm going to ask each panellist to give us a sort of 60-second or so description of their enterprises, how long they've been doing what they do. So first of all, let's welcome our guests from the US. We've got Jennifer Simonic and Masey Kaplan from the Loose Ends Projects. Jen in Seattle, Masey in Maine. Jen, can you give us a synopsis, and details will flow out later during the conversation, of what Loose Ends is all about?
Sure. Loose Ends is a nonprofit here in the United States where we take fiber arts projects that have been left behind or by someone who is has deceased or is infirmed and can no longer do their project due to blindness, illness. And what we do is we match them with one of our 24,000 finishers to finish the project for their family.
Wow.
In a nutshell, that's what we do.
In a nutshell, it's huge, but that was in a nutshell. It is an incredible organisation. I've learned a lot about it over the last few months as I've been chatting to Jen and Masey. Back to the auditorium here at the forum, I'm going to ask Maria Thornburg from Redo Norfolk, which has already become so involved in many projects and organisations in the county. But the headline of what Redo is all about, Maria.
Okay, so we started about 3 years ago. I used to work in the charity sector and was shocked to see how much we ended up throwing away. So Redo is a reaction to that. So we basically work with businesses and charities and individuals trying to find solutions for things that would otherwise go to waste.
You're a non-profit.
We're a CIC, so a community interest company. So all the money we make goes back into the project to do more.
Okay. So Ellen, who has created the company Crazy Hippo Crochet, and her delightful crochet mini dolls are on display just inside the library throughout the festival. You'll see and hear a couple of shots. There's the Dowager from Downton Abbey, and that's Taylor Swift, which had to be explained to me because I don't know what she... Ellen, give us a quick overview of Crazy Hippo Crochet.
Sorry, so I started this probably properly last September, but I learnt to crochet when I was 14. I'm now 19, so it's been going on about 4 years now. And yeah, I make mini crochet dolls of my favourite like artists, celebrities, characters, and yeah, all that kind of stuff, and sell them across the world now. So yeah.
Fab, that's lovely. And if you can pass the microphone down to Ella at the end there. Ella Goodwin also works with textiles, creating fantasy figures and dioramas. Her brand is Miss Ella. She's also based here in Norfolk. Ella, what's Miss Ella all about?
I was predominantly an illustrator, but my background was in all sorts of different things, from theatrical costume, puppetry. So my business kind of evolved really over time. I didn't have like a direct starting point, but 10 years ago, I left my full-time job to focus on illustration and making, and it's evolved into kind of craft kits, fabrics, textiles, homewares, books, illustrated children's books, jewellery. Too many different things, actually. I need to rein it in. But yeah.
Yes, they are really gorgeous. And finally, welcome to Rob Livingston, who, if we can pass the down the line. Rob Livingston from Norwich University of the Arts. He advises students and graduates on how to take their learning and skills into the big wide world. So I've sort of half described it, but yes, tell us why that's needed by the students. I mean, it's a big leap, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a lot of students have questions and a lot of emotions when it comes to making that step. They've worked into routines over 3 years, routines that they're quite accustomed to, and then those routines are kind of gone. So making that adjustment is one that we try and prepare them for as best we can.
Well, I'm going to ask some questions that I think the audience would like answered, but please, here in the auditorium, do put your hand up if you want to chip in and add a supplemental question. But this is a group conversation. It's not about it's your turn to talk, it's your turn to talk. So, and if you're joining us on Zoom, please do type a question and I'll have a look at my other screen there and try and include some of those. But let's start now. Let's talk now, first of all, about getting started. We've got a range of organisational types here, but there are some themes that are common to whatever your craft is, whatever your thoughts and ideas are, and how you want to approach things. First of all, perhaps I can go back to Ellen, if I can, first of all, because, you know, this is, without sounding patronising, you are quite young and you started quite young. Did you have a vision that you wanted to go into business? How did it all start in the first place?
To be honest, no. It started off as just I love to crochet, and that's what I did for most of my time. And then family and friends started to ask, "Oh, can you make me this? Could you do me this?" And I said yes. So, but then that seemed to get quite busy, and then I started making dolls, and that's when everything really took off. It first started, I made a set of Ugly Betty dolls. I don't know if anyone here has heard of that TV show. People are nodding, this is really good. Because I know it was quite a long time ago, but Becky Newton, who was in the show, picked up on them on social media and asked if she could order a set, which really kind of kick-started everything. So I never went into this with like the purpose of doing what I am now. It all kind of just happened. So yeah, which I do love, but yeah.
So while you've got the microphone, so I know that looking at your website now, you've got a distinctive brand, and just move that on this. You've got a distinctive brand, and you've also created some merchandise now. So actually, it's quite a complex business. Do you run it by yourself? Are your parents helping you? Because I know that you're still living with them, aren't you?
Yes. So I do. They are here today. So hello. And they have helped a lot with things like packaging up and accounts and things like that, so that I can. Because I'm obviously quite young, I don't have those skills yet. So yeah, trying to learn that as well. And yeah, but the crochet side is all me. I don't want to sound selfish in that sense, but yeah, everyone's like, oh, where did you get this like creative side from? And I think it did come from my grandparents from when I was younger. But yeah, no offence to my parents, but I don't think it came from them.
You're not going to let your dad crochet Taylor Swift, are you? No, no. So I'll pass the mic down to Ella down the line there. So that raises quite an interesting point, doesn't it? You know, you are an artist, you love what you do, but you've got to run a business. Now that is, for people that love what they do and they're thinking about turning their craft into a career, what do you have to tell them about, you know, how much time do you get to be an artist once you're running a business?
A lot. I do a lot of wholesale worldwide, so that a lot of time is spent having to manage all of that and packaging, and it can be a bit production liney at times. I take time out sometimes. Last year I was really lucky and I was able to get some Arts Council funding, and then I had a chunk out. But
Just hold it slightly away from you, at the same level, but slightly away from you. Yes, that's better.
It's a juggle. I don't know how else to describe it on my own. I'm always thinking I need to get someone else to help me, but so far I'm sort of almost there, but not quite at the point I can quite let go of things.
Well, to go down to, we haven't heard, but we heard from Jem, but hear from Masey, who's in Maine. The organisation that Loose Ends has started up, I know from other conversations, it started as a thought and an idea, and it's only less than 2 years in. Things are pretty big. So describe the scale of things that you're working at now, Masey, and what impact that has on your lives.
So when Jen and I first started, again, it started just as an idea, and we did not know if anyone else would have the same sort of interest. So we went from just chit-chatting about it to jumping in and putting it out there to see if people would start to sign up. So in about 18 months time, we went from no volunteer finishers to having more than 24,000 volunteer finishers in 64 different countries. So there are about, I think, 12 or 13 countries that have active projects going on. But it grew rather quickly, and a lot of that happened because of some really great press, people just sharing information, putting flyers up in their local craft shops, putting flyers up in their local cafes and hospitals. It kind of just grew in a very grassroots kind of way.
I think that brings another very important point. No matter what your craft is, what your business model is, whether it is what you're doing there in the States, whether it's what Ellen and Ella are doing, creating business, and Maria, if I can give you the microphone back again. Let's talk about how you get the word out about what you do, whatever it is, whether you're selling a mini dowager from Downton Abbey, or whether you're trying to say to people, we have the know-how and the contacts to help you stop putting those textiles into landfill. How do you get the word out then, and what sort of challenge is that for you?
The challenge to start with, I think, was to get people to take us serious, because to start with, we were 3 people with an idea. And I think a lot of people thought that we were just kind of trying to, create world peace kind of thing. But so it took a good year before businesses especially started to listen to us and actually take us serious when we started to talk to them. But I think the most important thing is don't underestimate yourself, and don't let that be something that don't let it put you down. We reach out to anybody. In worst case scenario, you get a no, their loss, just move on. So, and we never set any limits to who we were going to reach out to either. We kind of started by just saying, like, we're going to build this strong core, and then the rest is going to be flexible. So our organization is growing based on who we come across, rather than saying that this is the box that we're in and that's the only thing we're doing. We'll do it. That is a very relaxed sort of view on it.
Let's talk about the personal qualities, perhaps, that a person needs if they're going to make a go of it, because I think I was doing a bit of research before this event, and the number of creative businesses that stumble and fall in the first year is quite high. Rob, you're well qualified to talk about this. I mean, what is the core advice that you give your students when they're about to enter into the real world, as it were?
That's a good question, and it's interesting that we talk about kind of stumbling in businesses. Originally, I think that mentality that Maria's talking about is incredibly important. The not worrying about if you hear no from some businesses, some people, as you put yourself out there. I think for a lot of students, what I try and encourage is curiosity and putting yourself out there and trying new things. And yes, sometimes those things won't work, and that can be a tough pill to swallow. But in the process of finding out the things that don't work, you move closer to the things that can work. And this is very much so kind of the entrepreneurial mindset that I try and bring across to students is, yeah, you may have some things that don't work, but maybe your third business is well placed, you have the experience and the business plan to back it up, and things can be different.
I know it's an often quoted fact that Richard Branson had many failed business ideas, and the same can be said for a lot of successful people. So would you say it's a matter of being able to be flexible, to change your ideas, to change direction, or should you have absolute faith in what you do and carry on regardless and be faithful and close to your art or your idea?
I'd say that's a very difficult question.
I
And
know.
no business, no business is going to be like any other business. Especially when we're talking about craft in particular, I think that the crafts that people produce are very personal. So when we are putting that craft out there for sale, interfacing with potential customers, I think that authenticity is incredibly important, right? So if we're making celebrity dolls and we're selling those, then that is something that we can continue to work with and work on. But within that, there is room for experimentation. And I think that's incredibly important. So you might see that some dolls are more popular than others. And what does that inform us for our business model going forward? Is there something that we can do and change within our business to address that? So my advice is always to experiment and to think about, can you budget for a little bit of research and development and for things to not go correctly so that you can, again, narrow down on those products that are selling, that are connecting with customers.
So is there, should you start with a business plan, or is it okay to just organically follow what's happening? I suppose it depends on the personality, doesn't it? I mean, well, what would you say?
What I will say is I love it when students come in with a business plan. They've downloaded the Prince's Trust Pack and they have a few questions about it, but they have some ideas. The reality is, with the students that I work with on a day-to-day basis, some of them have done that and others really haven't. And I think that when we talk to artists and crafters, some of them have kind of fallen into their craft. And that's okay too, to realize that something's working very well and to follow that route, even if you don't necessarily have the plan or understand why it's working. Those things can come. However, for businesses to succeed, I think that, we probably need to have Dad in accounts help us out every now and again, and to invest in ourselves and to try and understand and to grow in that way, to develop plans as well.
I know from talking to Jen and Masey about loose ends that what started as a sort of local idea, as you said, quickly expanded. And so Jen, actually, it required software, didn't it? It required a business plan. It required a brand. I mean, how did you have to move fast?
Yeah, I mean, well, the nice thing about Masey and I is we complement each other. Masey has a background in graphic design specifically towards nonprofits, so she knew coming into this, we need a brand, we need a logo, we need a website, we need all of these things. And I come from tech and from teaching, and I have no problem asking anyone for anything. Not everybody's going to like your idea. Not everyone's going to understand you. You are not pie. You can't make everyone happy. So one thing that I do know is that I I get a lot of no's, but I also get a lot of yeses from people, and we get a lot of, we'll call people and talk to them, and we do a lot of talks about what we do to get people interested in what we're doing. I've had a lot of people, I've worked with some very smart people in tech that totally don't get what we do. They think it's this nice little idea, and they're like, oh, are you still doing that nice little thing? I'm like, yeah, we're in 64 countries. And people just can't wrap their heads around it. And it's not my job to make them. So we just work with the people who do get it. I find it really funny, when we first started, people started asking us well, do you take old yarn? Do you just take stock? And we didn't, so we made a plan for how we were gonna get that to the right place. And we actually have your website, the Redo Norfolk, on our website, because it's one of the resources we can give to people. So bringing up those people around us who do get what we do is part of this whole thing. Use your resources that way. And if you hear no a lot of times, you're talking to the wrong people. You need to talk to the people who get you.
That's great. That's great advice. Ella, if I can pass the microphone down the other end again. So I want to talk about protecting your ideas, protecting, just hold it up slightly, that's better, thank you, I'm sorry. Protecting your ideas, because there must be a lot of people that just want to copy what you do. And have you come across that? Have you had a problem with that?
The bigger issue has been just kind of factories in China who might grab something and churn it out, and getting that taken down is more a problem. I don't have an issue of people copying specific ideas, and I don't really follow trends in any way. So no, but I mean, I have to send quite a lot of emails out to various scammy websites asking them to take stuff down.
And do they respond? I mean, is that something?
It can take a long time sometimes, and it's really good having such a good community of other people who will also email and say, we've seen this, take it down. It's so helpful. You really need that support around you for that kind of thing.
So it is support, not just you sitting there, isolated on your own. Even though we've got the resources of obviously we can contact people globally, but they can also spot a selling opportunity with yours globally as well. And
yeah, I've found my stuff popping up in the bizarrest places. I mean, people have even sent me a business card of another illustrator who'd used my illustration for their business card, like really bizarre things.
Cheeky. And so how does that make you feel? Because of course there's a form of flattery there, because they recognise that it's something that, but that's also going to soak up some of your valuable time. This is one of the pitfalls, isn't it, of putting your stuff out there?
And you worry as well if someone's stealing your designs and putting it on T-shirts or something, and then someone's buying it thinking it's yours and it's really poor quality, and there are loads of reasons why it's not.
So are there, actually Julie might be a person who can answer this about the protections that are available to people, certainly in this country. Can I hand you the microphone, or perhaps come up here, Julie? Thank you. Because if we brought up the subject of intellectual property, it seems like a very good idea to ask Julie about that.
Yes, there's a lot that you can do, but it is hard to police, as Ella is saying. So it's great when other makers are looking out for you. You can get an IP attorney involved to help you mitigate some of this, which can be pricey, but there is mediation as well. Here at the BIPC, the Business Library, as I was saying, we do assist with intellectual property, whether that is the trademarking or logos. Equally, we can assist and tell you the routes to follow if you feel that you have been infringed in any way, in the way that Ella's suggesting. And with the Intellectual Property Office as well, getting involved with mediation. There's a lot of mediation you can do before you get a lawyer involved.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think that's probably, perhaps I can come back to Rob to comment on that problem that people might have with trying to retain ownership of their art, their craft, and their product.
Yeah, so when it comes to the courses that I'm mainly aligned with at the university, it's illustration, photography, and fine art. And particularly within photography and illustration, I find that there's not a lot of understanding around IP. And I have had students who have thought they were onto a good project, a good relationship with a small business locally where they would take photos or do illustrations, only to not really have things properly contracted and to have that business think that they owned the rights to those images when that's not really correct. So it's good to be informed, and it's good to protect yourself and your work. And part of that comes from understanding the basics around IP, which the BIPC is well placed to help on. I'd also say that certainly for the areas that I talked about, there are a lot of associations. So like going to the Association of Illustrators, the Association of Photographers, and becoming a member, they have a lot of really good information that can help with this as well. But also, yeah, coming to projects with a contract and understanding some of the main sections of that, really, really important. And it only takes things breaking down once for you to realize, oh, maybe I need to have a clause within my contract that really speaks to this.
Yeah, very important advice. So, Ellen, have you had any experiences of people copying your work? Please tell us about it.
Yes, I have. I've had a couple people try and, as Ella said, use images that are mine, and you then have to track them down and try and get it taken down, which can be really difficult and does take a lot of time and effort away from what you're trying to do, but it is worth it in the end. And thankfully I've had people that have looked out for me, who follow me and have said, oh, I think this might be crazy hippos, and things like that, which I do really appreciate, but it is super frustrating when it does happen. But you just have to keep going and do what you're doing and then hope that, that all works out in the end. So, yeah.
So when, let's talk about actual sort of business planning and strategy now, which sounds very, very dry, but actually once you've established that there's a market for what you do, there's a bit of popularity, whether you, in Loose End's case, you've got lots of people signed up, and with Redo, I know that you've got your tentacles in so many different areas, and it's really, really impressive to find out more about what Redo does here. And both Ella and Ellen have got a product which is selling well. I mean, you were saying, weren't you, you virtually sold all your dolls before you came to the Makers Festival because suddenly it all went well. Would you say, perhaps I can ask Maria to answer this, is there a point at which you go, hang on a second, this is taking off now, I need to step back and I need to make a plan. So I want to know from any of you on the panel here, at what point did you make a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan? Or have you not got one yet?
Well, yeah.
Sorry, it might embarrass some people now.
No. First of all, I mean, one of the first things that we did, I'm sort of the entrepreneur of the group. I started Redo with 2 of my friends. The sort of base idea came from me, and then we developed it together. The reason that we named it Redo Norfolk was to rein me in, because otherwise we would be global by now. True story. When it comes to a plan, part of me wished that we would have sat down and made like a proper plan, but at the same time, I think that would have kind of, I don't know, maybe put a little bit more of a fence around what we're doing, and by not doing it the right way, if you like, we've been able to just grow very organically and in so many fantastic ways that I don't think that we would have otherwise. I think that now, 3 years down the line, we might be more in a place where we kind of need to start to at least, look a little bit, because we're growing so quickly and we're still quite a small team. We rely on volunteers. So we'll probably do a rough business plan, but I think we're going to continue to wing it a little bit.
On the subject, on the subject of business plans, though, let's talk about the hard facts. We all need to earn a living. We need to pay the mortgages and pay the bills. How do you make a living, for example, from your community interest company? Is it all run in your own time and you're not looking to make a living from it? How does it work?
It's a bit of both, to be honest. For me, it started with I lost my mum a few years back, so about 3.5 years to Alzheimer's, and she left me a little bit of money, and I struggled to kind of figure out what to do with this money because it didn't feel like it was mine. It's weird, but I talked to her about my idea about redo, and I knew she loved it, even though she wasn't very creative. I was like you. I didn't have creative parents. She loved the idea of it, so I thought, actually, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna use that part of that capital, kind of get me started, and also allow me to invest time without having to worry about a wage. If that wasn't the case, redo would not have been, because it takes so much time, and we would have had to go down the route of kind of try to find funding, and then, which is really hard, trying to pitch your idea to people when there's thousands of other people pitching really, really good ideas, and everybody's after the same pot of money. It would have been very, very difficult. But it helped us kind of start and give us that sort of, well, something to build on, you know. Yeah.
So there's a different story behind everybody's, I suppose. So if I can go over to Masey in Seattle, I know that you started off and it was taking up a lot of your time. Now, from talking to you the other day, 60 hours a week sometimes working on this, but you have been able to find sponsorship and corporate support now that you've grown it. Tell us that story. Oh dear, are you muted, Masey?
So sorry about that. My cat was chiming in, so I muted. So Jen and I dove in without funding in the beginning just to see if there was any interest. Once we became a nonprofit officially, we were able to start to accept donations through our website, and also started to grow some corporate sponsorships. And we were fortunate enough, here in the US, there's a crafting company called Joanne, who from the beginning was just a huge supporter, and they would contribute materials if projects were left behind without enough to finish them. And they were just kind of cheerleaders, and they were amazing. And then once we started to grow, they offered us a sponsorship so that we would be able to get funding from what they would do is people could round up at the register when they made purchases in stores, and the rounding up would benefit loose ends. So, and we're continuing to do that even still. We're working on making connections to other potential sponsors and looking at what grants might look like. But it is going to, it's going to be as we grow and we want more help so that we're not working such long hours by ourselves. We're going to need, it's just a fact of life. Like, you just need money to make your organization run and to be able to get the supports that you need. And so I think it's just, I think that everyone's kind of in the same boat. We're just all trying to think of creative ways to make our idea continue to live.
Yeah, and if I might chime in, with a nonprofit, it doesn't mean that you can't make a living. It doesn't mean that it doesn't cost money to run it. It doesn't mean that, we should not eat. We need to eat like everyone else. But what we've had a lot of experience with people, because it is nonprofit, donating. We have smaller organizations donating a part of their sales from a weekend, or we've had yarn crawls in the United States where they'll put a percentage of their proceeds towards us. So there's a lot of different places and a lot of people who want to support us, and it's just finding those opportunities and asking. But I think that in the United States, at least, there's a shift where they're not, when people give money towards a nonprofit or a charitable organization, it can go towards paying people to work at that organization. There's a shift in, like, you shouldn't have a competitive salary to, oh yeah, that makes sense. We want this to happen, and for this to happen, we need people to be able to work a reasonable amount of time and get things done. So we just continue to look for those opportunities, and they're not always as obvious as you think, and some of them are very obvious. You just have to go and ask.
There's an attitude amongst some people that that art and creativity is well, that's all very nice, and you should do it free, you know, and actually they forget that actually this is how you are choosing to make a living or to try and make a living. Ella, have you found that people don't necessarily recognise the full value or understand the prices that you attach to a piece that's taken you hours and hours to make? I mean, how do you cope with that?
You get that, and you get people who want to commission you to do an illustration on something that they think you'd just love to do because you love doing that, don't you? So why does it cost anything? Yes. Of course. You just have to
explain.
Like you said, that I need to eat and my cat needs to eat.
Yes. Yes. Yes, but it's quite interesting. I know when I first started doing producing the Makers Festival nearly a decade ago now, even I didn't realise until I got into this. Even I probably had that attitude. Or if you just do a sketch for me, or if you could just do this, or could you just do some branding? And it's your job. It's what you do, and sometimes that needs to be explained.
Yeah.
Yes, quite clearly.
It is.
Yes. Yeah.
To do.
Although even as a amateur textile person myself, I still wince when I see what the cost of a handmade Fair Isle jumper is, for example. And I mean, I'd love to buy them, but we're talking a couple of £100 or more. But then when I think the time it takes me to create a jumper, even at minimum wage, it's cheap to buy it for £250. It's so that must make it. Does it make it difficult to make a living? Is the question I want to ask you and Ellen, who make stuff to try and make a living. You can't undersell, can you? You mustn't undersell. Go ahead.
No, I have quite a range of price points. And when you're saying about business plans and things at the beginning, and I'd very much evolved, and that was the thing I would advise most of all, is to make sure you think about your pricing at the beginning, because I think it was a couple of years in when I really did some courses in wholesale and was like, oh my God, I need to add how much was the ink in the printer, like every little thing to work it out properly. So that's one of my only regrets at the beginning, is that I didn't really work on exactly how much my time was and the pricing was and all of those things.
Would you recommend any online resources that give people tips and ideas? I mean, are there any that you found particularly useful?
I joined Indie Roller, which is a sort of indie creatives coaching type community online.
Indie Roller. Yeah. Okay.
And it was absolutely brilliant, because there was individual courses on wholesale where you're tailoring everything, marketing, Pinterest, all of those things. It was really, really useful for thinking about strategies, especially for someone who had just. I never would, like you were saying about, would you get started if you didn't just jump in? I probably wouldn't have started and actually got going if I hadn't just jumped in feet first and just put some things on Etsy and someone's bought them, continue. But I did have to start working it out more sensibly a couple of years in, yeah. But it did take me a couple of years.
So, Ellen, can I ask you then? I mean, here you are with your online business, and I think you use Etsy, don't you? What other platforms do you use to sell?
My main one is my website that I used to sell on. It used to be Instagram, and I did have, I think, a pattern on Etsy, but I don't know if anyone in here has anything to do with Etsy. They do take quite a big cut of things you put on there, so I found it, better for me to get a website sorted, which wasn't easy. It took a lot of work, but I'm glad that I did it, because it's allowed me to have more freedom and I can sell things for a little cheaper than I would be able to on Etsy, because they also, once you'd put the price, they would stick quite a lot more on that, so that would then put people off. So yeah.
And when you say you created a website, I mean, that's a short sentence, but it's a big task, isn't
A
it?
very, very big task.
And it also needs constant maintenance, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So how much of your time, do you do it?
I don't. My dad does help with parts of it.
Well done, Dad.
We have a very, very lovely gentleman who we were put in contact with who help set up the website and runs the kind of things behind the scenes that I really don't understand a lot of the technical side of things, because I haven't had any experience in it, but I'm kind of starting to learn things about different aspects of running a website. But yeah, I'm very thankful for the help that I have got, and especially from the guy who has set it up, because he has gone like above and beyond to help and to set it up in the first place with all our questions and everything.
So we can talk about online resources, and we can talk about professional help and everything, but actually there is the kindness of friends and family and strangers as well, isn't there? And I think one of the things that we've all involved in the Norfolk Makers Festival, and one of the things that we've noticed there is that actually it's a community of people who are collaborative. It's an unusual person who isn't in that world, in my experience, and people do like to talk, and they do like to be part of that community. I know that that's Jen and Macy's experience as well, with all the community they've created of finishers all around the world. They speak to each other. So it is, I would say, from what I've gleaned from people and also from chairing this event over the last few years, it's about networking, isn't it? It's about other people. What do you have to say about that, Maria?
One of the things that I always say is that, I walk into any sort of business relationship or just talking to people, looking at how we can help them rather than looking at how can I make money on you. And what I've noticed is that, 9 out of 10 times, it will work out for something that's beneficial for you and your business or your charity. And maybe 1 out of 10, you'll get somebody who just not interested in helping you whatsoever, they just want to take. But 1 out of 10, that's not bad, So be generous with your time, but value it at the same time. One of the things that we notice with a lot of the local artisans that we work with is I hear them, they go to an event and they're really happy because they made £400. And then you're like, okay, well, the stall was £100. You had to rent a van to go there. And then you sold this many items. How much did the material cost you to buy? So in the end, when they started to look at how much money, even if their price point is fairly right, when they start to look at like the actual time they spent making it, they end up making like £1 an hour or something, So look at your price point and look at where you're selling, and look at, like you said with Etsy, a lot of people have issues with Etsy. Look at where you're selling and how much money you actually make, and value it, and ignore all the people you will hear over the years who say like, oh, how much? You'll hear it so many times. Like you said, it's not your people. Just move on,
Well, I'm conscious that we're sort of about 7 minutes to 7. I know we started a little bit late. So for the last 10 minutes of this, I just wanted to give people the opportunity to ask questions if they wanted to. I've seen, so what I'll do, go for the audience member first, if I may, Julie. Lady in the pink jumper there, first of all. Go ahead.
Two questions, actually. Leaning towards Ellen, because I'm kind of can I make business? One of the questions is around that price point. I was looking at the amount of time it takes them to create.
Yeah.
So I'll repeat your question simply because people online won't be able to hear you very clearly, but it's about how do you price things?
Deciding is actually worth turning into a business. And then the other question, kind of leading on to what you said, being authentic. We are in the market. But I'm not on social media, I'm talking about something and how I don't think it's a space to be in. So is it actually feasible to create a business in this day and age with those principles in mind? Not willing to engage with Instagram
So is it possible to price things as they should be priced to value your artistic work and also stick with your artistic integrity? Do you have to compromise in some way to be able to make a living? Rob, what's your thought on that?
Online and offline.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, okay. Yes, how do you get the word out there? How do you promote if you don't want to use social media is probably sort of nub of the question there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's difficult. I'm not going to say that social media is the most healthy place. And when it comes to everyone in the room who's a maker, I'd say a big part of your decision making to use that for marketing, because it is free, is also how that affects your mental health, how much time you spend on it. These are things that should be considered, especially because many of the algorithms of these sites are also designed to keep people on them as well, which makes it even harder for makers to then move potential customers from those sites to their website that they've created and then lead and generate sales. Is it possible? I mean, I hope it is possible, yes. When you're not working online, you are potentially losing sales. But, a lot of what we've talked about as a panel is finding your people, right? And maybe you have some potential customers on Instagram or on TikTok, but they might exist in other places. If you can find those places, then those may be spaces that you can sell your work in. And those might be physical locations that you could pair with. I know, speaking for Norwich, we have a lot of independent businesses in the lanes. It might be worth exploring what those relationships could lead to for you as well, right? And so, I certainly hope that is possible, right? I hope that answers your question. Did you have one for Alan as well?
I might just pass the microphone to the lady, actually, because I think the people online won't be able to hear what you say. If you can hold it sort of near your chin, then that would probably help.
How's that?
That's better, thank you.
So the first question which Rob answered was around, is it possible to actually create a business without engaging with social media, which he answered very kindly. I think it would be you're hamstringing yourself effectively, but might still be possible. Yeah. And then I think my question for Ellen, because my interest is in amigurumi as well, was around taking the leap into trying to make it happen, because when I calculated how much of my time it takes to make each one, I'm thinking, who's going to pay for this? And I was just wondering how you wrapped your head around it.
It's a bit steam-powered, this, in the end. I have to, there we are, go for it.
So yeah, it is really difficult to start out with. I think I was very lucky in the sense that I started when I was quite young and not really aware of kind of what other people were thinking about it. But I had a really lovely lady at the local workshop I go to who said, don't ever undersell yourself. You don't know your worth. So yeah, it was scary kind of putting it out there for the first time, but you only have to have that one person who buys it and then will spread the word and go, oh, maybe their friends will go, oh, well, we'll get something, because they'll see the quality and they'll know, they'll understand more what was put into it. But yeah, I do understand what you're saying. It is really difficult. And whenever people ask me, like, oh, how much does that cost? I'm always really afraid of the reaction I'm going to get back from it. Because some people are like, yeah, they totally understand it. And they're like, if people are willing to pay that, then it's obviously worth it. But there are other people who then just run away, which, yeah, is scary. And you also have to learn to not take that personally, because this happens, quite a lot. Obviously, you have a lot of people asking things, so you do have to kind of get used to that. But yeah, there will be the people who really understand, your worth, like everyone else here has said, that they're your people and they're the ones that are going to continue to buy from you. So yeah, go for it.
Thank you, Ellen, thank you. So develop a bit of a thick skin if you can, is the message there. So the lady with the yellow cardigan here, it's not orange, yellow cardigan, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a business that links to the Etsy site, and all my sales come from Etsy, which makes me cry when I lose most of my profits. But I'm too scared to take Etsy down, because I know what I make is probably people will go to Etsy to look for that. So I just wondered what the best of and how you promote yourself through your website rather than through Etsy.
I'll ask Ella to answer that because I know that you use it Etsy, don't you? So what do you think?
Well, I have both. So I have Etsy and I have my own website as well. Yeah, the fees are harsh on Etsy, but to be honest, I do find it because the Google Ads fees as well, if it comes from Google, are added on, aren't they? But I just feel like the SEO that Etsy gives is brilliant, and I make sure I send out a discount voucher for my website in every order on Etsy, and convert those customers to my own website, and just try and.
Everybody's written down that idea. I can hear that.
But yeah, just keep both. I mean, I know a lot of people are getting rid of their Etsy completely, but I don't think I definitely need both. I use Shopify for my main website, and it really wasn't that hard to put together. So.
Is there another question from the audience? That the lady with the striped top, I'm going to stairs. Anyone old enough here to remember Robert Kilroy Silk, who used to do this on daytime television? There you go.
Hi, this is a question probably for Ella and Ellen. Ella, you said that you did a lot of stuff wholesale, and there seems to be quite a variety of things that you do. And Ellen, yours seems more of a niche market. So I was just interested in the comparison between the two. Do you find having a niche is the best option, or having a wider variety?
Thank you very much. Well, okay, so perhaps if you can both just do a quick answer to that, or have you got an answer? No, you haven't. Go for it.
I'm going to try my best to make this concise. Yeah, I guess I kind of fell into my niche. I didn't realise that it was really going to become a thing until it did. So I've never really been able to explore, of what Ella does. But it is now trying to find, because obviously it takes a lot of time to crochet a doll, and I've now got to find other ways of kind of making that work as well. So yeah, going exploring other options, but still within that niche. So yeah, trying to kind of get the most out of that as you can is difficult, but hopefully worth it. So yeah, but I'm not sure what your opinion on that is. So.
I just find too much temptation in trying everything. That's my problem, and it's. I think you do kind of find your niche through trying everything as well, because you'll find out what sells. And for me, the wholesale is mostly the kits and cards rather than purses, say. So I know. And incidentally, it's wholesale. If anyone's interested in wholesale, I use Fair for wholesale, which is a wholesale platform. So I don't have quite so much of the admin side of it. And it connects directly to Shopify. I'm not here doing an advert for those things, but just if you're trying to use something to make life easier.
I have a question from one of the people that's online. So what formats, perhaps I can direct this at Jen, because I mean these are general principles as well, really, with this question. What format for advertising works best? Posters, online ads, social media. I mean, we'll ask a couple of the other panel members as well. I'll ask Maria this as well. I haven't heard from Maria for a little while. But are there some methods of promotion and advertising, Jen and Masey, that have worked better than others?
Yeah, I mean, when we started, we did anything that we could. We put up flyers. We walked around town, put flyers up with our home phone numbers on them and things like that. As we got more publicity, because we are a nonprofit and let's face it, a slow news day or a day that's filled with war, we go on and we make a pretty good story that people can feel good about at the end. So for us, it was about reaching out to organizations much like this one, or libraries or senior centers and news organizations to tell them about what we did. And if you can get into those types of situations, we've had some really good success with that. But also Masey, and you can speak more to this, Masey has done an amazing job with our social media, where we have teamed up with Instagram people, and used. We've done some. We haven't done any Google ads, have we? Have we?
I don't think we have yet. But we have done some ads on social media. I think that our situation as an organization is probably different, a lot different from folks who are actually selling products.
Yeah.
And but I will say that partnerships have been amazing. Just working together with other organizations that, or maybe getting involved in an event that's going to get some publicity. So I'm just trying to think with my entrepreneurial hat and rather than my nonprofit hat, but partnering and working together on events that are coming up, or maybe working with people who could become influencers online, and help you get the word out, because it's too much for one person to try to do alone. And it sounds like you guys have something really just unique and fun and different and special, and just kind of trying to get in front of the right audience.
And I mean, one of the things we have done is we've gone in front of the fiber arts people, but we've also managed to go into the aging community, which is a huge organization. Like, there's National Aging in Place for us. There's so many different organizations.
Hospices.
Hospices. Things like that, where we're getting people to think about us that hadn't really thought about us. So if you can find those people, that it is getting in front of your audience, but also, do you really know who your audience is, and expanding it as much as you can.
Thank you very much. I think I'll just ask Maria just to comment on that question about getting the word out there, your best platforms, whether you're selling or whether you're trying to get partnerships. What have you found works for you? And do you find that whatever you do, is it better to do a few things really well or try everything? Because
we're very much try everything. Social media, we're doing a lot on Instagram. We're on Facebook with a lot of our events. When it comes to selling, we started a eBay for Change shop, and that is our main outlet. Obviously, for us, it's different because we're not creating something and selling. We're selling reclaimed materials or fabrics. And obviously, events like the Makers Festival has been, well, transformative for us. You know, reaching so many creatives and people. But try everything. Try everything at least once and see what works. You know,
partnerships, collaboration, and contacts.
Networking also. We go to a lot of networking events with businesses, even though that might not seem like a perfect match for us. You never know who you talk to. That's the thing. Just because somebody met with somebody who works at a big accountancy firm, but she does creative stuff in her spare time. So you never know who you have in front of you. Just worst case scenario, you get a no and you move on. You know.
Well, it's just coming up to 7:10, so I know we've come to the end really, but and I know that really we've just scratched the surface of the conversations, but I hope that this has proved of some use to some people here in the audience and online. Julie, do you want to just say something on the microphone now about the services available to people at the BIPCs before I wrap up? Just a couple of minutes.
Yes, I'd also like to say thank you to everybody. But the BIPC, we talked a little bit about intellectual property. We do work with a lot of creatives. One thing I forgot to say earlier is audit trail as well. If you mark your work with either a C for copyright, R for registration, that's a good, and always date what you do. So that's always a good way of having an audit trail of what you've created and when. So if anybody does try and copy you, you've got evidence. So I'll chuck that in there. BIPC as well, we were talking a lot about the cornerstones of setting up in business and what we do offer. We work with partners, and so it's not just about information, it's about practical advice, and workshops and events. If we can't provide it, we work with the partners. So the cornerstones, such as looking at a business plan, looking at your financials and marketing, as well as maybe journey to net zero. How sustainable is your business? We offer that free of charge. We work with mentors, business support, and we run programs throughout the year on all those different subjects, as well as one-to-one advice with business advisors. And I was also going to touch on what Maria said about networking. Again, this isn't just an ad for the BIPC, but seeing as we are collaborating on this event and we are here in the forum, we want to make you aware of what you can all tap into free of charge within your local library to support you with your own businesses, and that's free of charge. So they're the main messages that I wanted to get out, and we hope that we do see you in the library if you need any type of business support.
Thank you very much, Julie. I know that Julie and her team would really appreciate it if you would use that QR code that I put on the screen to feedback on tonight's event. So it remains for me to say an enormous thank you to our panel for their time, their expertise, both here and abroad in the US. Thank you so much, Jen and Macy, for joining us, and do look at their websites. It's looseends.org, really, really interesting website. And also do have a look at Redo, Miss Ella, and Crazy Hippo Crochet, and of course all the different courses and opportunities that are available at Norwich University of the Arts. I hope that you'll enjoy the remaining 3 days left of the Norfolk Makers Festival. It's just been a cracking one so far, and we're in for a busy weekend. And also just keep an eye on the Sunday Times on Sunday. I think there's going to be a bit of a spread. Our Margaret in there as well. We heard from a journalist today. So yes, we're really hitting all the headlines around the country and around the world with that one. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming here tonight. A bit of a round of applause, if you wouldn't mind, for our panel.